Greetings and welcome to a special episode of Morrowind Modding Showcases. I'm your host Guy, and today we're looking at Morrowind Crafting, a massive crafting overhaul mod for Morrowind by Toccatta and Drac, and I do sort of need to apologise again for the lack of videos lately. This episode took me a lot longer to do than I expected. In fact, it took me just 4 days to map the thing out. I mean, Morrowind Crafting is such a massive mod, and really when it comes down to it, I basically had no storage space when I finished recording this. I mean, I have 5 gigabytes left on my hard drive right now. I mean, videos take up a lot of space. And with any luck, we'll be going back to some of our smaller videos after this. And it should also be pointed out that you can use the main menu here to skip to a particular segment of the showcase. And this is a rather long episode because there's just a lot to cover here. And I should also point out that Toccatta and Drac are currently looking for alpha testers for the new 3.0 version of Morrowind Crafting. You can see a highlight of what you can expect to find in the 3.0 version at the end of this video. With all that said though, why don't we just go ahead and get started. First things first, what is Morrowind Crafting? Well, the short answer is that Morrowind Crafting is a massive crafting overhaul for Morrowind that makes it possible to craft almost every object in the game through half a dozen newly added skills, from the largest piece of furniture to the smallest table utensil. Basically, if you're familiar with Morrowind Complete, it's a lot like that, only more inclusive, covering more objects, and it's more up to date with current modding practices. The longer answer is that with Morrowind Crafting, you'll now be able to blow glass, set pottery, build furniture, mine iron ore, create poisons and poison your weapons, weave baskets, create candles, sew clothes, cook food, and smith new weapons and armor. Most of these new abilities come with their own skills, and you'll have to gradually level these up over time, just like with normal skills, and these all start out at around skill level 5, so you're going to start with a lot of failures and messed up projects before you start getting the hang of things and creating masterpiece level equipment. And Morrowind Crafting does give you the power to craft just about anything, including some very rare and valuable equipment, but you won't be able to make it instantly. Morrowind Crafting follows the path set by vanilla Morrowind very closely, in that you'll need to try again in order to become a true master, and it will take a very long time with some of these skills. But in any event, in addition to all of these new crafting skills and mechanisms, Morrowind Crafting also adds a ton of new merchants to the game, along with new items to existing merchants. For example, you'll now find furniture merchants that have a variety of furniture pieces and occasional crafting tools for sale in Ebonheart and Mournhold, and this is a good way of getting furniture without having to build it yourself. You'll also find wood sellers in just about every major town and city around Vvardenfell, including numerous dialogue topics relating to the various types of wood you can find, and each region of Vvardenfell has a different type of wood that you can purchase from the merchants there, like the Ashlands have ash logs, and so on and so forth. You can't actually chop down trees with Morrowind Crafting, so this is pretty much the only way you can get supplies for woodworking, though you'll also find logs and containers on occasion as random loot. So there's a few different ways you can get these materials, and not just from buying things. You can also find specialty trainers in different places that offer training in these new skills, like mining or sewing, and this is a good way of getting your skill up without having to practice so much with trial and error. And a lot of pre-existing merchants will also now have new crafting items like woodworking kits or flint for starting fires or materials that you can use to craft items. And the Balmora bookseller actually has a book of recipes you can use for cooking, which is quite useful when you're just starting out and need to gather ingredients to cook meals. Moving on to the new crafting skills, this segment is actually going to take a fair amount of time, because there's over half a dozen new crafting skills, and they all kind of relate to one another. The first one I should mention is cooking, which you can start by buying a flint and tinder kit and starting a cooking fire out in the wilderness, and you'll notice there's actually 2 different options here. There's a cook fire for a fireplace and a cooking pit for a campsite, and once made, you can click on the cooking fire to open the main crafting menu, which has a number of different selections like soups, stews, salads, breads, and the like. And you can select one to see more options, and there's probably about 3 dozen or so different recipes for you to try, each requiring different ingredients and each having a sort of different difficulty level. Obviously, easier recipes are best for just starting out to help train your cooking skill, but the more difficult the recipe, the more your skill level will go up, so it might be worth it to try a more difficult cooking option even with the greater failure state, just to, get that cooking skill up there faster. It should also be pointed out that all the food that you can prepare with Morrowind Crafting will work with necessities of Morrowind and primary needs. So if you have one of those two mods installed, they will act as real food to help sate your hunger. If you don't have those mods though, this food will just act as a sort of potion that gives you a temporary boost to various attributes, kind of like booze in the vanilla game. And speaking of booze, an offshoot ability, the cooking skill allows you to brew any type of booze in the entire game, though this will require a ton of ingredients and also crafting the bottles for each type using the pottery skill, I believe it is, and you just have to create the flasks for that and all that. The second crafting skill I want to take a look at is simply called crafting. It's sort of an umbrella skill that includes glass blowing, weaving, equipment making, and a number of other sub-crafting skills, all in the same sort of category. To use the crafting skill, you need to have a bag of crafting tools and activate it in your inventory, and when you do, a menu will pop up where you can select a category to work on, and you'll notice your current crafting skill is always shown at the top, along with how close you are to leveling it up. If you want to work on glass blowing, you can simply select that category, and that'll open up a new menu where you can select the type of glass blowing you want, and this includes everything from glass plates, flasks, and bottles, jugs to cups, and even 9-ware objects that you can create if your skill is of a sufficient level. You can make as many items as you like, assuming you have all the right ingredients, and glass blowing requires sand, which you can purchase from merchants or find out in the wilderness. And each time you create an item, it'll nudge you just a bit closer to leveling up your crafting skill, and when you do reach a new level, it'll give you the same message and ding sound that you get when you level up any of your normal skills. Crafting also allows you to make baskets, including basket containers as well as miscellaneous items, such as quills, inkwells, and various other items, including equipment like alchemy items, like a mortar and pestle, though creating alchemy-related items is also dependent on your alchemy skill. So you need to have a high crafting and alchemy skill to create alchemy equipment. Likewise, you can create lockpicks, probes, and repair hammers, all of which are dependent on their various skills like security, in addition to the crafting skill. In addition, the crafting skill also includes jewelry, which requires a special kit to produce, but with it you can make a couple dozen different types of rings, provided you have all of the right supplies. Obviously, the more expensive rings will require rubies or diamonds or emeralds to make, and those are obviously also much more difficult to create than the common rings. Now going into this next skill set, you'll actually need to gather resources from the environment. Like I mentioned before, you can find sandbanks out in the wilderness along rivers or lakes and gather sand from them. Likewise, you can also find clay around rivers and lakes where you can gather clay, and these sand and clay nodes get replenished after a certain amount of time, so you can keep coming back to the same sources to gather more if you so desire. With clay, you can obviously work on pottery using a potter's wheel, as you can see here, and this is yet another sub-skill of the sort of umbrella crafting skill. With the potter's wheel, you can create any clay-type object, like pots, cups, tankards, plates, and of course anything redware related, not to mention the special types of bottles used for brewing booze. Pottery is generally considered one of the easiest ways to get your crafting skill up quickly, since it includes a lot of simple items, like glazed goblets that are easy to make. Well, relatively easy to make anyway. When you do create a new item with the potter's wheel, it'll show up on the top here, as you might expect with a real-life potter's wheel where you shape the clay as the base spins. And you can just keep making objects and then just grab them from the top when you're finished. Moving on, the next skill set I wanted to take a look at here is sewing, which is actually a fairly broad skill set that includes clothing of all types, rugs and wall hangings, among other various items. To start sewing, and I am saying sewing, S-E-W-I-N-G, not sewing as in, legal nonsense, you're going to need a spinning wheel, some empty spools that you can make with the woodworking skill, and some raw fiber, which is a byproduct of cooking. See, I told you all these skills are pretty interrelated. You can spin as many spools of thread as you can with these items, and you can then use a loom to create bolts of cloth to be used in the creation of wall hangings or rugs. There's also a sewing kit which you can activate in your inventory, and with this you can create any kind of clothing you want, as well as bedrolls, sparring mats, practice dummies to wear on with a blade, or pillows or cushions, or even armor padding. And armor padding is used in the smithing skill set for creating armor naturally. And you can also create animal skin based items like certain Ashlander clothing styles using the sewing kit, and of course the easiest thing to make with the sewing skill set is common clothing or pillows or things of that nature. You can also create gloves, robes, shoes, and belts with the sewing skill set. Pretty much anything you might expect to see in a clothier's shop, for example. Alright, I know this is sort of getting a bit tedious, but we just have a few more skills to look at. This next one is actually mining, which allows you to mine iron and silver ore, assuming you have a miner's pickaxe, of course. And you can typically find iron and silver ore in the various mines around Voddenfell, and your mining skill will determine how much ore you're able to collect from each mining node. Iron and silver ore nodes don't respawn, so there's a limited quantity of ore available for harvest, about 500 nodes in total, I believe. But you can buy ore from various merchants, and the Miners Guild Hall in Vivek actually gets a renewed supply of ores from the mainland, so if you need a ton of ore for smithing, you can always buy some. And speaking of, the mining skill is really meant to be used in conjunction with the smithing skill, as you might expect, though some of these items in the woodworking and crafting skills also require iron or silver as well, because, again, all this stuff is, pretty interrelated. Now, the first thing you need to do for smithing is get an ore smelter. These are sold by various vendors around Voddenfell, and to use one, you just place it on the ground, install it, and begin smelting your ore into ingots that can then be used for smithing. Really, it's a lot like the smelters in Skyrim, so if you're familiar with those, you should be able to figure this out quite easily. Next, to really do some smithing work, you're going to need an anvil and a hammer, and much like everything else, this works by clicking on the anvil to bring up a crafting menu. You can create just about any type of armor or weapon in the entire game, including iron armors, glass armors, ebony armors, and so on and so forth. A lot of armors are divided into different categories, like the Royal Guard armor from Mournhold is actually located under iron-based armors, and you can create it assuming you have a high enough smithing skill. It's the same with the Endoral armor, the Imperial armor, the Nordic Ringmail armor, and many of the other armor sets, and each armor set might require some additional materials unique to that particular type of armor, in addition to, iron ingots and the like. So, some of these armor recipes might be a bit difficult to learn at first, since there's no real books to guide you through it, just try on air. Now, there's no actual recipes for armor, so, you don't have a strategy guide, it's just sort of winging it, I suppose. Anyway, there's also a slew of different types of weapons that you can make, including long swords, blunt weapons, maces, spears, daggers, and really just about everything else. You can even make Daedric-based weapons, though obviously these are very difficult to produce and require an extremely high skill set. And even then, there's a good chance you'll fail to produce the weapon you're trying to make, and this is obviously for balancing purposes, since Daedric weapons are the most powerful in the entire game. Moving on, the next skill we're looking at, and arguably one of the most important included here, is the woodworking skill. Much like everything else, this is activated by using the woodworking chest in your inventory. And when you do, a menu will appear with an array of different furniture options you can make. Almost everything you can think of has been included with the woodworking skills, such as, beds, barrels, crates, bookshelves, regular shelves, room dividers, lecterns, chairs, tables, and, so much more. Different types of furniture require different kinds of wood, just as you might expect, like the typical shack furniture you might find in a town like Hla Ode requires scrap wood logs, or the poor Dunmer furniture requires rough pine logs, or the more upper-class furniture items might require hickory logs or something like that. Naturally, the difficulty of creating each type of furniture is sort of dependent on the type of log used, since those sort of dictate the class level, with more upper-class furniture requiring a fairly high skill level to create. Once you do create a piece of furniture, it'll appear in your inventory, as you can sort of see here. And fair warning, a lot of this stuff is pretty heavy, which shouldn't be too much of a surprise really, since this is, massive amounts of furniture. And one of the last skills I want to take a look at here is the fletching skill, and this basically allows you to create arrows, bolts, and throwing weapons like all the other skills we looked at so far, it requires a special crafting kit to be activated in your inventory, and when you do, you can select from just about any type of arrow, bolt, or throwing weapon to create, though different types of arrows will require different materials, and this is just a really handy skill set for archer class type characters, since you won't have to search for arrows quite so much. Finally, we're down to the last skill, which is poisoning. Basically, you can find poison extractors in various Dwemer ruins, and you can use these in conjunction with poison recipes to create poisons to use on your weapons, sort of like a one-time use enchantment, like weapon poisoning in Oblivion, for example. Once you've created a poison, simply drop the vial on the ground and click on it to select a weapon to poison if you so desire. These are mostly meant for throwing weapons, so you can poison arrows and the like, and things like that. You can also create poison bombs using clay bomb shells created with the pottery subskill, and these are throwable, well, bombs that'll unleash an area effect when you throw them, depending on the poison you use, of course. And that pretty much ends this segment. The next thing we're going to take a look at are the Morrowind Crafting houses, and this is an optional plugin that comes with the mod when you download it that adds a variety of empty houses around Vvardenfell. You can purchase these from a merchant in Balmora, and they run the gambit of between 30,000 and 80,000 gold, so they're not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. But there's a number of interesting locales, such as this house in Caldera. Each house, of course, comes completely, or well, mostly empty. Some of them do have a few wall hangings and fireplaces, but that's about it. The Caldera residence is by far the smallest option on the market, and also the cheapest. It's a simple Imperial-style townhouse. The second option is a sort of large Hlaalu-style manor near Ebonheart, which comes with a lot of rooms, including 3 on the main level, 2 on the second floor, and 2 on the top floor. This is the largest residence you can find, with lots of space to decorate with your own furniture pieces once you've crafted a few things. And the final house, or at least the last one we're going to be taking a look at here, is a medium-sized Telvanni manor just outside of Tel Voss, in between the Imperial-style Telvanni citadel and the small farming village of Voss. Included with this Telvanni manor is about 5 different rooms, including 2 in the main entry part with a fair amount of space, which should work for most mid-level characters in terms of filling it up with furniture, and 3 more in the back. Well, now that we've covered all the major skills and houses included with Morrowind Crafting, I wanted to take some time to show you guys the furniture placement mechanics. And basically, when you create a new piece of furniture and it shows up in your inventory, you can plop it down somewhere and lock it or install it in place to turn it into a static, and more importantly, a solid object. This prevents you from picking it up again, so you need to be careful and make sure that you've selected the best location that you want for that piece of furniture. And basically, you can do this with any and all pieces of furniture included with Morrowind Crafting, and you'll actually need to install some of this stuff, like containers, before you'll actually be able to use it. Obviously, you can't store stuff in a miscellaneous item in your inventory. Probably the last thing to mention here with furniture placement is that some objects, like wall hangings or shelving units or light sconces, can have their position adjusted so they best fit the wall, and you can manually move these back, up or down, or change their rotation, which is just a nice convenience feature to have there. Wrapping things up, I just wanted to show you guys some houses that were decorated using Morrowind Crafting, starting with the house in Caldera. Everything here was created using the Morrowind Crafting mechanics and locked into place, so not only can you build everything yourself, you can decorate and design your home to best fit your personal style. And in total, Morrowind Crafting includes some, I think it's 500 to 600 different objects that you can create through Morrowind Crafting mechanics, using the various crafting skills from furniture to dishware, clothing and food, drinks and containers, shelving units and weapons, and armor, and well, a lot of stuff, really. Pretty much anything you couldn't make before in vanilla Morrowind, you can make now, so you can open up your own trade shop, decorate your home, live a life of luxury off of your luxurious limeware sales, or become a master smith making the best Daedric armors in Vvardenfell. With enough time and training, you can really create just about anything with Morrowind Crafting, which is a really neat perk of this mod and gives you a level of creative freedom not usually seen in Elder Scrolls games. Also be mentioned that Morrowind Crafting is optimized for compatibility, so it works with just about any other mod out there, except for the Housing Edition, which does cause a few conflicts with a few things. You know, the Halalu Manor south of Ebonheart, for example, conflicts with at least 20 other mods, but that's a minor detail. Point is, Morrowind Crafting is one of the most feature-complete crafting mods for Morrowind right now. It covers more objects and features than Morrowind Complete or Skyrim-Like crafting combined. So if you like making your own stuff, there's really no reason not to check it out. Now, before I forget, one of the reasons why I made this showcase video was to give Drac and Toccatta some extra promotion for their new Morrowind Crafting 3.0 alpha release. So real quick, I thought I'd give you guys a rundown of what all is included in 3.0. Basically, 3.0 is a massive update that includes hundreds of new objects that you can craft, including at least one new crafting kit. You'll finally be able to build fireplaces and put together Dwemer furniture. Not only that, but another huge feature with 3.0 is the ability to create furniture and miscellaneous items from Tamriel Rebuilt. That's right, you'll now be able to create the stoneware dishes that you see in Tamriel Rebuilt, along with vases, bathtubs, wash basins, and many other items that you see on your journeys across the mainland. Not only that, but new options have also been included for Blood Moon and Tribunal furniture, like the tents from Mournhold, the colonial furniture from Solstein, and also in particular the bear and wolf statues from Blood Moon as well. You'll also be able to create pots of numerous different color schemes, and ladders for easily getting atop particular platforms. Other features to be included in 3.0 are new quests to introduce you to some of the crafting mechanics, so as I understand it, they aren't quite in the current 3.0 alpha. In the event, Drac and Toccatta desperately need some alpha testers to go through and test things out in 3.0. The project was apparently near cancellation due to the lack of beta testers, so if you have time, please do consider checking the 3.0 alpha out and playing around with it. Testers play a very important role with large-scale projects like this, since two modders can never possibly check out everything themselves in a mod of this size. And anyway, that's really everything I wanted to cover in this episode with regards to Morrowind Crafting. It's a really big mod that does a lot of things, and I'd highly recommend checking it out. You'll find download links for both versions of Morrowind Crafting down below, and I know that we've unfortunately had to delay a lot of videos to get this produced, so I want to make it up to you guys by doing a video a day for the rest of the week. Though we'll have to see what happens first. I know, I keep making these promises and then we get delays and delays and delays. You know, best laid plans and all that. But in any event, I want to try and make that promise to you guys and try and make sure that we have a lot more video content on the channel going forward. And really, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, do please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching.